right. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Hello, Coach Walsh. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
The season is upon us.
It is, and I see that you're donning the apparel well with your tanned arms. You had a good summer?
Great summer. Yeah, great summer. A lot of golf. Not me playing. A lot of watching golf. Willie, got to play in a couple USGA events, US Junior Amateur, US Amateur, and which are big time events. And it was really fun to see him qualify and go around the country. We're in South Carolina. We were Cherry Hills, Colorado.
Very cool. That was last week, right?
That was last week. Yep. And it's just seeing golf at that level is so exciting. Golf is such a great sport. I mean, I know a lot of listeners play golf, but it's seeing golf at the highest level. It's a ruthless sport, and it's a total clash between man and God, because man builds a golf course and then it clashes with God, like nature and weather, and oh man, it's just and when someone wins a Super Bowl, or we won, whatever we won last year, it was great. 80 people got rings. It was so exciting.
Right.
Golf is one person, and just to see that from a dad's perspective, it's really fascinating, if anything. Yeah, very fascinating. So we had a great summer.
It's a tough mental sport too. I mean, in terms of if it doesn't go well, it's hard to pick yourself back up. Very independent.
It's ruthless, and it's a little white thing that just sits on the ground, and it's like, please hit me straight. And most of the time, it doesn't happen. But anyway, it was a great summer.
Congratulations to Willie. I mean, he's just doing great now. He's at Pepperdine, and he's gonna he'll continue to make headlines, I think. So
yeah, absolutely. And for those parents out there that listen, it's losing a son to college.
I know.
Oh my God. I didn't realize how hard that was going to be. And it's, for me, like nostalgia, I don't like looking back. There's something about nostalgic times, like things that force you to be nostalgic, that brings so much pain to me, which I think like for some reason, or for some, makes me stronger in the present because I'm so afraid of the past. And it's like, I don't want to live in regret. I don't want to. There's a lot of things that I think just help me focus. And this event of my son leaving, 18 years, this dude either crawled or walked in and out of the house for 18 years, and then boom, it's gone.
Gone.
And it just gives me an opportunity to reflect on how important those relationships are in the moment, because as we know, life is fragile, and whether it's college or something, a lot less fortunate than that,
right?
Life can change, and I think it's important for all of us to use these opportunities to build the love and the relationships. So when things change, which ultimately it does, you can never look back with any regret. I'm very thankful as a dad that I chose to be a high school coach, because high school coaching has allowed me to see my boys grow up and to be present in their lives. And I think college and NFL is not so much.
Right.
And people ask me all the time, Coach, when are you going to NFL? When are you going to college? There may be a time. I mean, I don't know. That'd be fun.
Don't rule anything out.
Don't rule anything out. I love what I'm doing, but it's just that there's a different level of commitment to football at that level due to time. Recruiting, and the NFL is like, hey, you mess up, you're done.
Yep.
And I think Barry and Charlie here, like if I mess up, maybe I'm not done. I got a little bit of leeway here.
We are a Catholic school, so we forgive.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's right.
No, but that's a good point though too. And just to your point about Willie going away to college and having that difficult, bittersweet goodbye. You see it all the time when your seniors graduate, so you'd think you'd be prepared, but when it's your own, it's just a little bit different. So.
Yeah, and it helps me gain perspective now that I've lived through it to for the parents that are going through it, moving forward. So,
Awesome. Well, let's switch gears from golf to football, and here we are on approaching our first week of the preseason, which is exciting. We're coming off of a wonderful 2022 season with a 13-0 record. This is a team that is incredibly talented, has a lot of spirit, and not much experience losing. So how are you preparing the kids for the season, the boys, and what do they look like now, and how's the offseason been?
Yeah, a lot.
Lots of questions
there's
here.
There's a lot there.
Loaded.
Yeah, no one cares about last year anymore. I mean, the 2022 team cares about the 2022 team. No one cares about that anymore. We're a fresh, new team, new faces. And when I say new, last year's juniors are now seniors, so they're new. They're new. There's
leaders.
They're leaders. Yeah, so they're in a different position than they were last year. And we had fantastic senior leadership last year.
Absolutely.
So far, so good. I would say right now the strength of the team is that senior leadership. And that's what should be expected from this group. And I say that because as much as I hated 2020 and we want that to never happen again, and if it does, I'll be there with a torch and everyone's going to be following. But with that said, we had that opportunity, if you look at it, for June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. We had all those freshmen up with us on varsity. These are 4-year varsity football players. There's 4 of them. It's Colin Tawatia, Joseph Bay, Danny Niu, and Jabari Mann. They've been with us for 4 years. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's unique. And it'll never happen again. Let's make sure of that. And now, if we get super freshmen like that again, but the amount of time we've been able to spend with them will never happen again.
Right, and it's extremely rare in this football program, and Sarah, and correct me if I'm wrong, to be pulling up that many at once or even at all, really.
Yes, and there's a whole nother podcast about the strategy of that. But yeah, absolutely. And so I'm seeing this as a great byproduct of an opportunity now with these men now that have an opportunity to truly create a self-led football team. In my opinion, a utopian football season would be where our coaches only coach and do not motivate. Motivation, if from within a football team, is the best motivation of all time. If the coaches are on the whip and trying to motivate and you got to do this and why aren't you on time and all that stuff, it takes away from the actual coaching and teaching of the game. And it then puts it on them. So I'm pretty sure none of the coaches will have a touchdown or a tackle or anything this year. So it's all about the players.
Right.
So I'm hopeful, and we're going to have to live this, but I'm hopeful that this staff can truly turn the team over to the players. And this would be the year to do it.
Great.
I'm very excited to see how that actually works. I mean, and I think a lot of us coaches talk about that, where I have this truly self-led team. And that's the plan anyway. So
great. And so you said, I mean, you talked a lot about motivation. Are they a pretty motivated group? I mean, do you see they're all business? I mean, can you tell me just a few strengths about the team this year?
Yes, I believe our summer, when we got to June and got into chapel and we talked about a lot of things. I think healing. I think we're always healing. I think humans are always healing, because I think just by nature we're wounded, but sometimes you don't know where the wounds are, and I think this offseason kind of it forced us to look at some wounds within our program, within each other, within our relationships. That wounds hurt, right? Just by nature, if you say someone's wounded, you're like, oh, that person's in pain. So there was some pain. Right, and you would think 13-0 had a great went down south and played in a state championship game and all these things. There's no wounds over there. There's wounds everywhere, and this offseason created that opportunity in the spring, January through May, for us to identify where these wounds are. And the only way to heal is to find the wounds, right? So a lot of us go through life and we don't know that we're wounded. And when the wound gets exposed, it's time to address the wounds. And addressing the wounds can sometimes be the most painful part.
That's the hardest part.
That is the hardest part, right?
Got to do the work.
You got to do the work. And I'm grateful that this offseason presented some challenges that allowed us individually and collectively to identify some wounds and then address them and have the difficult conversations and find out what's going on. We have a very dynamic team, very, very dynamic team. And that's where I kind of came up with this concept of, we've always been brotherhood. It's always been about family. It's always been about that. And people who've listened to this broadcast or this podcast know that we're all about love, brotherhood, and humility. But I wanted to kind of have something a little deeper there. And the deeper kind of connection, hence why I'm wearing this shirt today, is this concept of Ohana, which is with all these unique people, all these unique characters, all these dreams, all these hopes, all these aspirations, ton of senior leadership forced into this game we call football, which has only 11 people can play at one time. There's only one football. There's not 11 footballs. There's one, right? And I know that there's 50 guys in this team that want that one ball. But how do we truly operate as a family? How do we truly, what is the deep nature of our Ohana? Where is that love? Where is that family? And that's what's going to be tested this year. there's every year coaches around the country have different obstacles to face. Sometimes it's like, I have no seniors. I graduated my whole team last year. Right. So this year we don't have that problem. We have a lot of seniors coming back, but then that brings up another set of problems: expectations, rankings, bunch of things that don't mean anything. But I'm very pleased with how we've overcome all that. We've done some hard work. I do not think this is going to be a smooth sailing type of year. I think this is going to be very, very challenging for, I think some of my own internal thoughts on how to handle a team like this. Meaning with the strengths. I'm afraid of the strengths. It's in a strange way. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I mean, how to best utilize them. I mean, and how to work with your strengths rather than, ignoring some or misusing others, right?
Correct. Yes. And I think it's easier to work from that Rocky Balboa perspective. We have no talent. We have no leadership. We have none of this stuff. You need to rise up to that. But what if all of that is kind of, if you think about it, there? So then what? So there's some unknowns that we're going into this season, like I said, how it built and how it's come together and these sort of things that are going to really, really challenge us. And it's no mystery for anybody that listens to this podcast. And I know some of our opponents. I know some of my buddies at St. Francis and other people. There's no mystery that we have a very talented team coming back that went undefeated in Northern California last year. So we're either going to kind of bow to the pressure, or we're going to stand up and raise our chests and face it, and deal with all those people coming at us. And we know it's coming. I've never been afraid of losing. I'm not afraid of it. I think sometimes life's best lessons can be taught through pain and trial and error. I know none of our fans want to hear that, and neither do I.
Of course. But as you just said, there's a lot of lessons that you can learn after a winning season as well that, you still have to address, right? Like you were talking about the wounds and, tackling them and doing the work and working as a team to heal.
Heal. And I think for me, regardless, the external inputs don't matter. There is no them, there's only us.
Right.
And the more we can dive into that concept, that spirit of Ohana, and diving into the family and diving into the love for one another, and to create a shield around all of that. And that shield is enveloped in our envelopment of love for one another and our relationships, and truly diving into that win, lose, or draw. I'm most excited about that. Like, what if we could dive into an even deeper spiritual level of love for one another through this great game? What if there's, and there's just been some incredible levels of love that has flown around this school and this football program. And I'm curious if we can go deeper. I'm curious to see if that can happen.
That's good. No, that's a great goal to aim for, right?
Yeah.
I wonder though too, like maybe you can explain for us, like how does the Brotherhood and Ohana work together?
Well, so Brotherhood is very simple here at an all-boys Catholic school.
Right.
It fits
Very simple.
it fits the concept of the all-boys Catholic school. It fits the concept of a football team, and brotherhood. It all makes sense. Okay. Well, in a family, in a true Ohana, there's a sister, potentially. There's another brother that's not playing on the team. There's a mom and a dad and guardians and grandparents, and there's all sorts of levels of it.
Of support, right?
Yes. And I believe in this year, everybody needs to be on board. Everyone needs to be on board. It's not just within the walls of Serra High School and this little campus here that we have that we call home. It's not just the Brotherhood. It's deeper than that now. It's Ohana. It's alumni. We had an alumni event. We had a spiritual Padres event.
Right.
All of these things that we're doing is trying to pull in the entire community that makes up the Serra family.
So it's welcoming, belonging, and showing up, right?
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit. I think that's a great segue. Yesterday was a wonderful event, the inaugural Spiritual Madres Football Clinic, which was I attended myself as a football mom, and I had such a good time, and I learned so much. And I want to just kind of talk to you about the impetus for having it, and the takeaways. And I can tell you, of course, some of mine as well. But just tell me what whose brainchild was this, and how do you think it was?
Well,
received?
I recently think the social media is the greatest thing. It's just such a great thing. Social media, I love it, and. I say that a little bit in jest, as we know, but
most of the time you love it.
Most of the time,
a couple days out of the year we don't.
Most of the time, I don't love it, to be honest with you. And I've made a conscious choice to separate from social media. It's there is no them, there's only us, right? I mean, whatever. With that said, in the last couple of years, I've seen teams, post on social media Mom's Days. I'm like, wow, that's genius. The mom in a helmet running over their kid,
right?
Something like that. Like,
I've seen that.
I think that's really, and I thought that was so cool how those. So this is not my idea. This is other people have had this idea, where they bring the moms on campus and they show them football. So I was like, we're going to do that. We were going to do it last year, but for some reason it didn't materialize, which gave me another year to plan for it. And really the why of the whole thing, Amy, was to basically, if we can show what Serra football truly is, could we bring a mom closer to a son? That's the reason why we did it. That's awesome. The core. That was the core why. Okay, because I know Serra football, just through experience, brings us closer to each other, right? As in the brotherhood.
Absolutely.
But this concept of Ohana, what if we got the moms involved, right? And truly showed them, gave them a little bit about football, which is where we started in our new Stinson Center, which is incredible, by the way. What a great place to do a presentation. It was
so awesome.
It was beautiful.
Watch
and that's where Neil Maffey did the draft day. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of great things that happen in that new space. And so bringing them in there, having an introduction, telling them the why. Part of the why was empowering and emboldening mom to be strong.
And your lovely mom was there too, who we love.
And my mom was there.
I loved seeing her and all you had to say about her, which is lovely.
Yeah, she's the best. And so just kind of bringing everyone in there, doing a little football 101, 11 people on offense, 11 people on defense, just some fundamentals of football.
Right.
And that was really fun. We talked about punt team, punt return, fake punt, field goal, PAT. What does that stand for? All these fun things.
Bandit, Rover. You went
there
over
you go.
everything.
Hey, how about this? We got some true names here that, Amy, you learned.
I learned.
Good for
I listened.
You did. You took in, that's our safety positions. So doing all that was great. But then I think we got out on the field. We showed the weight room. Coach Carson, Coach Vignal were in there talking about what we do in the weight room. I know the moms like that. We did some drills on the field. But I think really the magic of Serra football and the magic of yesterday was the chapel.
It was. Definitely.
And getting people and getting our moms in the chapel, allowing them to be vulnerable. Moms carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. And my mom did and still does. You do, I know. My wife does. I mean, these moms are so incredibly strong. Sometimes they don't have an opportunity to be vulnerable themselves because they've put this whole world on their shoulders. They're carrying the family. God bless you, dads. We're great, but we know where the money's made here. But it was just there was just some magical moments that happened in there. I was so thrilled. I was so nervous. The first thing I said was when we got everyone in the room, I'm used to having 80 boys in here, right. And this room smells way better
I'll bet.
than any of those other rooms. I'm just going to be honest. Perfume and everything. I was like, this room smells way better. That was number one.
And we took our shoes off.
And we took our shoes off.
So that's saying a lot.
You know what I'm saying? This is just amazing. But what I really kind of was so enthusiastic about was just the energy. There was so much energy and enthusiasm. We showed a pick where I think Nate Sanchez tipped it to another player in 2019, and I was like, "Ooh!" That was my version really of cool. An interception. So I was over the moon with how it went and what the women got out of it. And I'm hopeful that the goal of actually bringing them closer to their own sons by strengthening them, transcendence comes from within,
Right.
Vinci che se vinci. One conquers who conquers oneself. That doesn't stop with, that's a saying that goes for every human.
Right.
And if that mom left just that 3-hour day and feels stronger at home that's going to strengthen our Ohana.
Totally.
They're our moms and our grandmothers, and they're the strength of the Ohana. We know this. And that yesterday was a step towards that ultimate goal of just creating a deeper family and a deeper experience.
Well, and like I said, I sat in the freshman moms group, and I mean, nobody knows anything about chapel. They likely haven't heard, unless they have older children. Like my son, I knew obviously from the podcast and from Connor's experience on the football team, knew a lot about chapel. But I know that room was, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Everybody was so committed, and so I know that like at the chatter as we left was like, wow, the fact that there's a place for my son to come and, you know, share his, you know, fears and vulnerabilities and everything. It's just such a huge add value. So hats off to you. That was awesome.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad it went well.
Awesome. Well, speaking of coaches, all the coaches showed up and they led all of the different sessions, and that was really awesome. Could we talk about the coaches on the varsity team? Just we saw them all yesterday, but any movement, any new coaches? Introduce the staff a little bit.
Yeah. So we have pretty much the exact same staff with one notable exception. Coach Ken Peralta is coaching the freshman team. He coached freshman team here prior to the last couple of years of varsity. And I basically, Coach Peralta.
Huge win for freshmen.
Well, it is, but he could be the head coach of any team in this program, any team in the state at the varsity level. To me, he's my mentor. When things are going sideways, he's the first guy I call. He's a man of God. He's so spiritual. He's a great family man. He's the best, absolute best.
Great human.
And he wants to coach varsity, and rightly so. And he belongs here with us. But with Charlie, my son coming in and having an introduction to football, I wanted it to be done the right way, and I slowly groomed. Coach Peralta goes, "You're grooming me to be the head freshman coach, aren't you?" And that's kind of a bad term these days, but he knew what I was up to, and I said, "Coach P, if you could coach freshmen, you know, with my son and his classmates, and it would speaking of Ohana, he's a part of my family, and him knowing that Coach Peralta is integrating my son into football, Serra football, in this way with an amazing freshman staff, it's a dream come true, to be honest with you. It really is, because as we know around here, we're not, the 11-on-11 stuff matters, but it's more about what the game brings.
Right. Definitely.
And I wanted my son to get that introduction with Coach Peralta.
Awesome.
Okay.
Wow.
So then Gustavo Manzanares, who applied he was the defensive coordinator at St. Ignatius the last 6 years.
Wow.
And on this podcast at times I've said there's actually now 3 coaches that have totally destroyed Serra in certain instances. Chris Vassar, Darius Bell, and now Gustavo Manzanares, who I was so impressed with as a competitor that when the opportunity arose to potentially get them on the staff, I jumped on it.
Nice.
And so now this is number 3. You know, Darius put 66 points on the great Serra Padres. He reminded us about that yesterday. That was great. And then Coach Chris Vassar, we were scoring 55 points a game, and he shut us out, 21-0. That was great. But something's going on over there when things like that are happening. Gustavo Manzanares as a defensive coordinator for SI did some, really, really impressive tactical things, including beating us in 2019 and stopping us on the 1.5 yard line to make us not go undefeated. That was great.
Right.
I
want that guy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So he'll be coaching our defensive line this year. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the rest of the coaches are going to remain in their positions, which is great.
Yep.
And Vignal will be helping out with varsity as well.
Yeah, he's our strength coach.
Right, strength coach as well.
He's doing our strength coach. So
if anyone wonders where our awesome freshman coach from last year went, that's where he's in the weight room. So.
He's in the weight room with Coach Carson. So
exactly.
that's great. That's a ton of, we have 800 boys who play sports, and obviously 200 and something guys playing football. So it's great to have another teammate in there for Coach Carson, and Coach Vignal's full of energy, and I love him. He played for us here.
Yep.
He's a great Serra Padre, and we're lucky to have him.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, speaking of newness, anything new with the WCAL? What's going on with the league? Anything changes that we should be aware of? Or
we had a coaches meeting. Actually, we have it every single year, but one of the main themes was how social media and the 501 rule, I think it is, with the CIF and how the WCAL handles undue influence of recruitment.
Oh.
And that was posted on social media. We had a big meeting about it. We haven't done that ever, really. And it was, I think it's healthy because so much has changed. This league's been around forever. It's been around for a long time, and obviously things have changed. And one of the main tenets or that came out of that was we as coaches and athletic and directors and people at Serra are not allowed to reach out to families on social media. We're not allowed to follow things, not allowed to like things. We're not allowed to DM kids. We're not allowed to do any of that because in the CIF rule and our own rules, that's illegal. So we're not allowed to do that. And we just, we had to make that known as a league for potential student athletes. So potential student athletes that listen to this, we're just, as much as we'd like to create relationships with them and with you, if anyone's listening, we're not allowed to do it. There are certain times that we are allowed to do it, like an open house or when kids are allowed to be on campus, maybe a shadow experience or an interview process. I mean, that's the time where the private schools are allowed to talk to them about athletics. Private schools, if they don't recruit, would shut down. So every private school has an admissions team and has a recruiting team, if you will. But the rule is, those have to exist because we sell education and a faith-based education. If no one buys it, your school shuts down, which sadly has happened across this country. Okay, and there's been some all-girls schools who've shut down in the last 10 years. There's been 4 or 5 of them, right? So
or merged, like in Reardon's case, right?
Well, because one of them shut down.
Exactly.
And Sacred Heart Cathedral is the perfect example of that. Reardon High School is a perfect example of that. So recruiting departments and admissions department have to exist, and we are a business, right? It costs money to go to school here, and if you want to, you have to be convinced to pay the money to get the Serra education and Serra value-based, faith-based education. Part of that is there's a sporting department here, but it is entirely illegal in the state of California for private institutions, even public institutions for that matter, to have undue influence through athletics to have people come to their school, whether it's an 8th grader or someone to transfer. And the off season was discussed quite a bit. And we had our meeting the other night where our WCL commissioner, Jolene, just said, hey, tomorrow morning we're posting this on our own social media pages that lets families know that it is, the coaches do not love you. Right. They're just not allowed to talk to you through social media. It's not allowed. So.
And if found to be in violation of that, what would happen? Was that laid out too, or is that?
It depends probably on the variance of it.
Sure.
But I would, there's, I think coaches could be suspended. I think games could be forfeited.
I see.
Sadly, I think, I don't know how this works, but I've seen just other things from around the country. This isn't a Bay Area problem or whatever. Right. This happens all over the country. But I've seen kids not be able to play their season, which is really sad for that player.
So it sounds like a lose-lose.
Yeah, that's not good. So look, high school sports, the beauty, what I just said, I was saying earlier about being a high school coach and being able to spend time with my kids, and there's a benefit to that. And part of the reason why that is that way is because even though we are kind of year-round now, football,
right?
It's a seasonal sport, right? And in the NFL, there's a GM that the lifeblood of college and NFL football is recruitment, right? You get
Absolutely.
the first-round draft pick, and draft the quarterback. He's your franchise guy. It changes everything forever. Right. Billions and billions of dollars, right? Patrick Mahomes, these sort of things change Kansas City Chiefs forever. So everyone on the planet is trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes. The college guys are trying to keep their jobs too. So their entire lifeblood is through recruitment. So with the Pac-12 blowing up and this sort of stuff, how's that going to affect recruitment? How's it going to affect my job? I got a kid coming to Cal and Stanford. Cal and Stanford need to get into a great conference, right? Because kids want to play in big games. And how's it going to affect everything? That's so, the angst on that makes me nervous.
Sure.
It makes me nervous. These are two of our Bay Area powerhouses. They need to find a conference. Very hopeful for that. And it does affect recruiting. shouldn't matter. This should not be a conversation at high school. It just shouldn't, because we're high school. We are the last, regardless of what anyone says, college sports has never been amateur. It's never been amateur. Whenever there's 100,000 people in a stadium paying X amount of dollars to be in the, that's not really amateur anymore. Someone's making a ton of money on the bowl games and these poor kids like Reggie Bush, they got his Heisman taken away. Like, come on. Like, I'm making a statement. If anyone listens to this from USC, give that kid his Heisman back, man. I mean, how much money did USC make off of Reggie Bush jersey sales? A lot. Right? And he, makes a mistake. I don't know what he did, but like, come on, it's always been a business. This is not that way. I don't want high school sports to go that way. It shouldn't. It's not that way. And while things have changed though, things have changed. For example, in the state of California, NIL is real. Anybody can make money off their name, image, and likeness. So it's trickling down, and there's pressure. And the things that are happening on social media and the other things, there's angst that's dropping it down into the high school level. But I think we, and particularly the WCAL, has to be the bastion of reminding everyone that this is amateur athletics. And while I think people listening like, come on, Coach Walsh, you're the most competitive guy on the planet, which I am.
That's okay. That's kind of independent of what you're saying, though.
It is, but I'm also like, what have we talked about? We have one of the most experienced teams ever. We have a lot of Division I football players. We have a lot of great players. They've been here for 4 years. We had a transfer. Malawaki Smith is a transfer. Like, how'd that happen? I mean, there's a lot of things to think about. Right. And I always empathize with all sides of the argument. I really do. And I understand it. It's just, I'm always going to tell the truth on these things. Right. And I think that's why people like this podcast. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be truthful. And I, being a head coach of a WCL football team and the beneficiary of some great talent who's come to this school. I'm not going to be there and sit there. We have the best coaching staff. We lift a lot and we pray really hard, and that's why we win. We also have some great talent, and we have throughout the 23 years that we've been here, right? And high school coaches know that. When we go down and play St. John Bosco or Mater Dei, they have 40 Division I players. I watched the high school game the other day. It was Mater Dei versus Corona Centennial. And Mater Dei has one corner going to Georgia and one corner going to Alabama. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's going to be hard to complete a pass on those kids. Yeah. On the same team.
We've seen it.
Yeah, that's like, okay, so, all right. Well, that's interesting. That's tough. Right. So they're the beneficiaries of some great talent. So Pop Warner, same thing. If they have great talent, a guy who runs the ball, no one can tackle him, you're going to win more games. It's all about balance. It's all about balancing it. And, like I said, I'm not afraid to lose. I mean, whatever. We're going to do things the way we do things here at Serra, and that's just the way it's going to be. Perfect. And we have 0 transfers this year, and I love that about that. I think it's great. And that's, that means the kids who've been here, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, or most of them 4 years, they have an opportunity to play. Exactly. And I think our families respect that.
That's great. Well, speaking of the WCAL, are there is it too early in the preseason or the start of the season to kind of get a look at our competitors? I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with some things.
There's generally who's coming back, who had strong JV teams, who has strong freshman teams, and that sort of stuff. Let me just globalize this. I think the overall level of play in the WCAL this year is going to be higher than last year. And I'm hopeful that includes Serra. Yes. Good ad. But I think, as I look around globally at the league, I just think, everything's just raising. With the returning amount of talent people have. We've had some coaching changes at Bellarmine College Prep has a new coach, and David Diaz-Infante. I've had a great opportunity to meet him. He's a tremendous guy. I love him. We've had some really, really great conversations. I think we'll be 364-day friends. Yep. I think he'll be on the list. He's
like Justin De La Salle.
100%. He's a straight shooter. He's like Coach Machado. Those guys know each other real well. And then we have Lenny Vandermeed up at SI as a new coach in the league. Nice. So there was some turnover last year with coaches, and I know they're bringing a ton of new life and energy to their programs. So I think WCL fans, I think it's the best thing.
It's great.
People ask me, and you told me that you were going to ask me this question, so I'm going to jump into it about how do we schedule?
Yeah, well, we were going to get into the preseason, and I was going to say, how do you determine those games? Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to segue that with also the WCAL.
I love it.
Okay. Am I doing? Is that?
That's perfect.
Does that work for you?
Just
You're the
gave you
boss.
a rundown, and you're remembering it. This is perfect.
Okay.
I don't have to look at my notes.
I feel like I'm talking too much now.
You're not. This is great. This is what people want to hear. I want to hear it.
All right.
This is my question.
Okay, Rosie, am I talking too much today? Okay, fine. Let's roll. So when I got here in 2001, I quickly learned from the community that the WCAL matters. And if anything, it matters more than everything. So in talking to the alumni and feeling the pain of multiple WCAL losses and not, we hung a banner in 2002 for the first time in 30 years in the WCAL. And going into the gym and seeing all those WCAL banners, like I made it a point to say the most important thing at Serra High School while I'm going to be here is the WCAL championship. Because I think it's as hard to win as anything. As a matter of fact, one year we won the CCS, which was 2021. We did not win the WCL championship.
That's right.
It was the same team, but Lancers beat us at week 10, and then we turned around and got them in the CCS game. But we didn't win WCL that year.
That's right.
They were undisputed WCL champs, and I don't know. If I went back, would I'd rather win that game or that game, whatever. But the moral of the story is the WCAL is the ultimate litmus test for Northern California football. It always has been, and it always will be, because of the how our league has come together. It's fantastic. Oh my God, it's a nightmare. But so I've always used a preseason as a basically not only a barometer but a testing ground to expose the wounds.
Got it. Bringing it full circle right now.
Bring the wounds. Bring the wounds. Last year, we were a minute away from 2 wounds. Now, scoreboard wounds.
Judy A kick.
Judy A and Seamus Gilmartin strip against the Bulldogs.
That's coming. Right.
I mean,
Folsom, right?
Those were 2 plays away from being 0-2. Okay, so that team persevered and overcame. And, there are some things in those games that we benefited from. Luck. There's some luck in those games, and people probably, like, when you look back in the history of games, you see, did you win, did you lose? No one knows the internal story. Well, sadly, last year, I think his name's Walker Lyons. His brother's a quarterback now at Folsom. Fantastic athlete, sophomore. Amazing player. His brother sadly broke his leg the first game.
That's right. I remember that.
That's a different game if he plays. They're a different team, and Coach Doherty and Justin Peterson, guys I love very much, they did a fantastic job with that team, losing their best player, and I think the first or second quarter of the entire year. Kid went to Notre Dame. It's a fantastic kid.
I remember that. And then that was the game that Lucas got injured, right, at Folsom?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
so
Lucas.
Kind of, another wound, right?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, you're right. I mean, we lost, our best runner in the very first series of the very first game of the year.
Yep.
It's a tough sport, but people, hey, you guys were 10-0 last year. Well, how'd that happen? Well, I can tell you that happened. And then De La Salle's best player perfectly called play late in the game. Their very best player, he's a college football player, dropped pretty much would have been a 70-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah. That
would have iced the game for the Spartans. That did not happen. And that gave us an opportunity to get the ball back and kick a game-winning field goal. I don't forget things like that.
Right.
Okay, so as everyone's like, oh, you're the best ever, you're 10-0, like, oh, you guys did great. We did. Absolutely we did. But in any one of those brilliant seasons, there's some luck that plays into it as well.
Absolutely.
So as we're navigating this thing and looking to the past, which I don't want any part of the past, right? That's over with. We are going to use these opportunities with a very, very good Folsom team. Okay, they're a young team. So we were the young team last year too.
Right.
Very young team, very talented. And I don't know if you can feel things through a computer, but when I was watching this game through the computer, I felt a very focused and determined team that's going to be here on Saturday. Very focused and determined. Extremely well coached. That's not a surprise. But the enthusiasm of the group of kids on the field, any 11 at a time, was palpable as I was sitting there watching. As a matter of fact, it was so palpable, and about mid-second quarter, I just went and just shut the laptop down. I was like, I need to enjoy this night. This is terrible. So it's going to be a great test. And
awesome.
And then you got De La Salle here. a Saturday. Then we got to go to a better Central Catholic, which is going to be tough on grass at their home field.
In the heat.
So we're gonna know exactly who we are when we play Sacred Heart the first week, and that's why I schedule the way I schedule.
Very cool. So I mean, and just to close the loop on that, I mean, so you kind of look at who's available, and you find the best opponents that we could play to expose what we might need to work on.
Yes, and I would say historically speaking, in the last decade, and actually saw this on Max Preps or something like that. In Northern California, the two top teams are Folsom and De La Salle. They've won the most state championships. They've won the most league games. De La Salle, obviously.
Always, right?
Always.
Yeah. And Folsom's, too. I mean, they've always been a great team, too. I mean, amazing.
They really have. They really, really have. They've done the last 20 years, and they've been at the top of the food chain. So we actually just re-upped with them, both of them, for 2024 and 2025.
Very cool. Okay.
So we'll be playing those two teams again. I have not talked to Coach Canepa at Central Catholic, but in their section, they duke it out they ultimately duke it out with Folsom. Okay. And some of the great teams, Granite Bay and all those guys.
It's kind of a good barometer for them too to play us. Looking at the outcomes for each, right?
That's right. So the only way to do it any bigger than that outside our own league, which you don't even really need to do that. You win your league, you're probably one of the best teams in Northern California, but is to go out of state or go to Southern California and that sort of stuff. But I'm not really down for that. I mean, it's high school sports. Right. It costs, we went down and played Notre Dame, Sherman Oaks. It's expensive.
Yeah.
I got to fundraise and it's like this school already costs a lot of money. And I know a lot of people, let's go play Bishop Gorman. It's great. Like, yeah, so you can go to the casinos while I'm watching 80 kids in a hotel. Like, we're not doing that. No, I'm not going to go play Bishop Gorman. Not happening.
That's awesome. Well, good. Well, so freshmen play at 3:00 Friday at home, Folsom, and then a doubleheader on Saturday. And then the following weekend, it's a triple header. De La Salle here.
Yeah, 9, I think, 11.
So all day football at Serra High School. That is going to be a fun day.
We're bringing in end zone seats, 1,000 people end zone seats. We're painting the goalposts. We got flags coming up this year. I'm very, very excited about some of the things that we're doing from an excitement standpoint. Being here, I mean, the excitement thing is I want people to see a good product, and I'm concerned about that because we don't scrimmage. Why don't you I don't scrimmage because I got to a point mentally where if one person got hurt in a scrimmage, I would never forgive myself ever again.
Right.
And that happened in 2018. I had this epiphany. The ones were out there, and after 3 plays, I'm like, you're out. Like I got to a point, and it was an inflection point. Like, we're never going to go back there again. And then I put the 2s and 3s out there. I'm like, I don't want you guys getting hurt either. Right. We're done. And that doesn't serve anybody. So, we don't scrimmage, which what I'm really concerned about is having 11 people on the field. Like just getting 11 people on, 11 people off, not burning stupid timeouts, right? False starting,
right?
Being in illegal formations, things that a scrimmage would help us with. It really concerns me. So if that's the cost of not scrimmaging, kind of getting that, what do they call it, a dress rehearsal, like a dress rehearsal type thing for a play, like get all the things out. As the microphones worked or headsets work, I don't know. Like all that stuff is just live right now against Folsom.
I was just going to say, yeah, you're not.
So whatever.
You're not starting small. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so best of luck this season. It's going to be great. I'm so excited to talk with you weekly about all the exciting things that are Padre. Just even in this podcast alone, I have like 50,000 different ideas on things that I know people would want to hear about. So again, we appreciate your time and talent, and it's going to be a great season. I'm so excited it's starting. So
are we doing the question thing? Are we going to?
Yeah, we'll do some call outs as well. We'll throw that on our social media. Go to Padre Football. That's our social handle. You can always DM any questions that you want me to ask Coach, and there will be times when we'll do just segments on Q&A, but any additional questions are definitely welcomed.
Great.
I can't think of all of them, right?
That's going to be a great year.
We need other people. So
so excited. I'm so excited, and I'm very grateful for some of the people that say that they listen to us, and they're very, very, very grateful for you and how you ask questions. And I know that I really enjoy doing this, and if our fans and alumni and people have a certain amount of questions, we'd like to know.
Absolutely.
Just to make it more
interesting.
Interesting.
More, definitely. All right. Well, go Padres. It's going to be a great season.
Go.
Thanks,
See you
Patrick.
later.